Good afternoon. This is the fourth meeting of the Special Finance Committee, and there are 3 sessions from 2:30 to 6:30. Once you're seated, I would like to tell you that the purpose of the Special FC is to vet the budget of 2014-15 to ensure that the amount sought will not be more than necessary, and I will allot speaking time after members have indicated that they want to speak. And when members ask questions, please refer to the reply number. Say, for example, CEDB CIT 001. To facilitate the conduct of the meeting, legislators and officials will be able to find the reply easily on the screen, and the number of the reply will be shown on the screen. And if your question is not properly answered, you can follow up on other occasions. I now invite officials to join us. I believe the Secretary will give us an opening speech before taking questions on commerce, industry and tourism. Secretary, please. Thank you. I would like to set out the key matters within the policy areas of commerce, industry and tourism. Strengthening regional economic cooperation is our priority work this year. Hong Kong will commence formal negotiations of a free trade agreement with ASEAN later this year. The FTA will enable our goods, services and investments to access the market of ASEAN member states under more favorable conditions and generate new business opportunities for Hong Kong. As for investment promotion and protection agreements, IPPAs, in December 2013, Hong Kong concluded IPPA negotiations with Bahrain and Myanmar separately. After completion of the necessary internal procedures by the parties concerned, the 2 IPPAs will be signed. In 2014, Hong Kong will continue IPPA negotiations with Russia and will start IPPA negotiations with Chile. As regards CEPA, the Hong Kong SAR government will continue through CEPA to strive to further open up the mainland market for Hong Kong services sectors by broadening and deepening the scope of liberalization, so as to implement the target to achieve basically liberalization of trade and services of 2 places by end of 2015. At the same time, we will actively cooperate with the Guangdong provincial government, striving to basically achieve early the goal of liberalization of trade and services in Guangdong by the end of 2014. In addition, we are actively participating in the negotiation of a trade and services agreement among some World Trade Organization members, with a view to providing Hong Kong services with better access to foreign markets. Tourism is an important pillar of Hong Kong's economy. Continuous growth in visitor arrivals has indeed brought challenges to Hong Kong, but it has also boosted economic growth and promoted employment at the same time. The SAR government is well aware of public concerns about whether the continuous growth in visitor arrivals would affect the livelihood of the community. We released the assessment report on Hong Kong's capacity to receive tourists at the end of last year. It acknowledges that with the continuous growth in visitor arrivals, Hong Kong should increase the capacity to receive tourists on various fronts. We wish to strike a reasonable balance between maximizing the economic benefits tourism brings to Hong Kong and minimizing the impact on the community brought about by the increasing number of tourists. On tourist facilities, the government has provided part of the 2.29 billion loan to the Ocean Park to facilitate its development of an all-weather water park at Tai Shi Wan. The Hong Kong Disneyland will also unleash a series of new initiatives in the coming years. To attract more high value-added visitors, the government will endeavor to gradually release the 6 sites within the hotel belt of the Kai Tak runway precinct to the market, starting from the end of next year, for development into a distinctive hotel cluster. Meanwhile, the Kai Tak Fantasy International Ideas Competition on Urban Planning and Design is now underway. On the other hand, could you please be precise, because we've got the copy of your speech. Yes. On the other hand, hotel supply will continue to increase in the coming years. Total number of hotel rooms will increase from 70,000 now to around 84,000. We will strengthen our attraction on tourism, say for example our cruise terminal development and the Wine and Dine Festival and New Year Night Parade. The New Year countdown celebrations will be injected with new elements. On intellectual property, I'm sure members are very concerned. I led the working group on IP trading, and as at the end of 2013, we have endorsed a strategic framework for the development of Hong Kong as an IP trading hub. We're now working on the specific policies and support measures. And in relation to support to SMEs, well, start in May 2012, the Hong Kong Mortgage Corporation Limited launched the SME Financing Guarantee Scheme. There is a special concessionary measure, and it will be extended to the end of February 2015. In relation to the Bud Fund, is operating very smoothly and strongly supported by the trade. And the Hong Kong Trade Development Council has been actively expanding the network of design galleries and also our network on the mainland. And in relation to manpower, well, the task force on manpower development of the retail industry, they have made a number of recommendations end of last year. I'm not going to go into details with that. In relation to investment promotion, we'll continue to attract companies from emerging markets to come to set up companies in Hong Kong. The Competition Commission is working on its preparatory work. The judiciary is also formulating tribunal rules relating to operation and proceedings of the tribunal and President's directions. When all the work is completed, we will bring the ordinance into full operation. Thank you. We have to make better use of time. Time's tight. Mr. Jeffrey Lam needs to go out somewhere else, so I will let him speak first. I have a question for the Secretary. In Hong Kong, we've been talking about free trade. We have a very liberal approach in Hong Kong, but there has been some comments saying that we should not do this, we should not do that, and we should reduce the number of incoming visitors. You also mentioned that we should actively attract funds to come to Hong Kong, or capitals to come to Hong Kong. In this regard, does the administration has any measures to tackle these different views? There may be different ways. One is a pessimistic way. We now ask the visitors not to come, or we can be more active and put in place better infrastructures or supporting facilities. Of course, it's easy to ask someone to give you something or to have it taken back, but after that, if you want it given, again, it will be difficult. I hope the administration will have some long-term measures to deal with investment promotion, economic issues, and also inbound visitors. Secretary, well, we are very hospitable, and I don't agree with some activities that have a negative impact on Hong Kong, because it adversely affects our image. And of course, we will actively deal with the impact brought along by visitors on people's livelihoods. And I will defer to the Commissioner. I agree that we should take an active approach. While developing tourism, we will reduce to a minimum the adverse impact on Hong Kong people's lives. we have a three-pronged approach. We should expand our capacity, say for example, tourist spots, hotels. And in the Secretary's opening remark, he has already gone over our work in this regard. The second point is that we should have more focused publicity efforts to focus on high value-added visitors so that we can maximize the benefit these visitors bring to Hong Kong. The third part is a comprehensive publicity to advertise other special places that are appealing other than the usual tourist spots in Hong Kong. In this way, we can more evenly distribute visitors so that they don't all crowd into certain areas. Through these approaches, we will enhance our capacity to receive visitors while reducing the impact on people's livelihood. We aim at bringing about a long-term, healthy and orderly development of tourism. I think when it comes to investment promotion, we can do more and faster. Is it because the electrical is getting in the way, or who is in your way? And as a result, it will take you a lot longer to launch your measures. When it comes to investment promotion, I will defer to Mr. Gopin.
Investment promotion, it's a long-term effect. Many of the companies that we talk to this year will actually set up in Hong Kong in 2 or 3 years' time. But we have a very good pipeline of companies that are interested in Hong Kong, and we are continuing our promotion efforts around the world, particularly on the mainland and particularly in the developing markets.
Okay, thank you. 到呢度第二位。
Second member. Well, if you made an application to me because you have an urgent matter to attend to, I will try my best to let you speak first. Is there a button to say that I have an urgent matter to attend to? Well, I have urgent matters to attend to. I didn't know that Tuesday morning you have an EXCO meeting. So what is your criteria? Why don't we have a discussion? Because it's not fair. It is fair. Well, I don't see the button for urgent business. But if you made an application, I would do my best to accommodate. I'm not going to get bogged down in further discussion in this regard because we should have more time to ask questions. I don't mind letting him go ahead. I will do my best to accommodate next time. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I also want to ask about our capacity. During CPPCC meeting and the NPCSC, the Jiang Dejiang, the director of the head of the CPPs of the NPCSC, also talked about Hong Kong's capacity. Well, is there any follow-up measures? Recently, there has been some coupons distributed for inbound tours, not zero fees, but they will come to Hong Kong for maybe 2 nights and they will spend 15-16 hours shopping. Do you have any measures to deal with this? Because we don't want Hong Kong's image to be tarnished by mainland travel agency. Oh, because the tour guide in Hong Kong said that, well, I'm just sticking to the itinerary given to me by the mainland agency. It seems that they make it sound like they are quite passive. So what are you going to do in this regard? Secretary, first, about our capacity to receive tourists, our assessment report. But I was asking about Jiang Dejiang, who has given some instructions. Well, we will take into account our capacity and look into many different objective areas. As the Commissioner said, we will focus on high value-added visitors and at the same time expand our capacity. and also divert inbound visitors from the traditional tourist spots to other areas in Hong Kong.
Besides, together with the CPG, will conduct close liaison. You understand that the CE has already suspended the multi-entry visa system. Will actively follow up on that aspect. So we'll continue to communicate with the CPG. We'll continue with that task. Recently, there was this saying as broadcast on the CCTV that tourists from the mainland had been brought to Hong Kong for shopping. Well, of course, we'll look into that aspect as well. We'll continue to carry out communication with the mainland authorities to combat such activities. I defer to the Commissioner again. Mr. Chairman, concerning the report of the CCTV, the Tourism Commission and the Tourism Board immediately contacted the CCTV for detailed information. If there's any breach of the guidelines of the Tourism Board, the board will follow up. As regards zero cost tour groups, that's actually one of our major tasks. In 2011, the Tourism Board launched 10 initiatives to enhance the regulation of mainland tour groups. Actually, the guidelines were promulgated by the TIC. That is to tackle the zero-cost tour groups. Will inform the mainland authorities the situation in Hong Kong, and in accordance with the mainland media reports, will report our details to the Tourism Bureau of the mainland, such that will map out what's to be done in terms of follow-up. And then in terms of publicity, we'll try to avoid agencies launching excessively low-cost tour groups. For example, those charging nothing. We'll follow up on the mainland situation and study whether or not such tours are feasible for a few days in Hong Kong at zero fee, zero charge. So we'll enhance our effort in that regard. Next, Dr. Loh Wai Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask about reply serial number 105 in relation to the trade of intellectual property. I'd like to know the results of the concrete work in the past year and the work objectives for the next year. In that reply, a number of jobs have been mentioned. However, insofar as achievements are concerned, the most important objective should be related to the trade on intellectual property. It said here that they will conduct a statistical survey on the trade of intellectual property. Does that mean that you don't have any data at the moment? Then how are we going to make our decisions, and how are we going to make decisions on the trade on intellectual property? And what about your future objectives? So the answer is rather difficult to understand. As for the Innovation and Technology Bureau, will it cover intellectual property? I think it should, because innovation and technology are closely related to intellectual property. So what's your timetable? When will you come to the LegCo on your plan to establish the Innovation and Technology Bureau? Secretary, I'd like to say that intellectual property is broad embracing. Patent, copyright, exterior, look, semiconductors, commercial secret, etc., etc. All these are intellectual property, and all trades and industries are involved. And then the trade on intellectual property is also a broad sector. Accountancy, agency, services, authorization, insurance, stock pricing, etc., etc., all come under intellectual property. So the working group on intellectual property is to study ancillary measures. For example, we have to assess the value of intellectual property. Throughout the world, there's no standard yet. So we are already the forerunners in the world. So one of the tasks of the working group is to commission experts to advise us on how to facilitate our work on intellectual property. Intellectual property IP also involves arbitration, and that's also one of the strengths of Hong Kong. We'll also commission experts to propose regulatory systems and regimes to us in order to reduce cost and enhance certainty, in order to attain value addedness. That is, to provide more impetus to the trade on IP and to provide a platform for such trades. We'll also collect data on the import and export of services, including the use of IP. Take, for example, in 2012, millions. Well, I think it should be to the tune of $4 billion of exported services. And then $15.6 billion of imported services. So we do have data on such services. The working group will compile and collate such statistics and data in relation to IP trading behavior. You haven't told me whether or not the future IT Bureau will cover intellectual property, and what's the timetable for coming to LegCo for the setting up of that bureau. Patents, for example, are very important in terms of IP and IP trading. So we'll closely collaborate with the new bureau for that development. Next, Mr. Wong Kok Heng. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask about paragraph 4 of the speech of the Secretary. That's about the original grant patent, depending on the progress of legislative work. Earliest by 2016-17, the original grant patent system, OGP, will be implemented. That's on page 5 of the English version of the speech. I'd like to thank the Secretary for that remark, which is yet another improvement over the past remarks. On another occasion, Mr. Poon Siu Ping and I talked to certain scientists, and now the administration has come up with this very clear response. And the expressions used in this response are very clear. I welcome them. I hope that during the term of the Secretary, the brands and brand names invented by Hong Kong can contribute to the primary industries and productivity of Hong Kong. I'd like to know, how are you going to implement those objectives? The third phase of the Science Park had been quite successful in attracting tenants. Inventors and scientists have been attracted to the Science Park to develop their careers. Under that circumstance, will the government be more forward-looking by developing Phase 4 of the Science Park? Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank Mr. Wong Kok Heng for supporting this original grant patent system and its implementation in Hong Kong. Upcoming, there are still a lot of tasks. I'm pleased that the Intellectual Property Bureau had been willing to collaborate with us. We need to set up databases, for example, and in terms of training and nurturing of talents and professionals, we still have a lot to do. If we have the IP Bureau of the country to assist us, then they'll have a lot of experts to help us. then our initial preparation work can be reduced. And then we have to explore a number of aspects, databases, for example. So we'll explore with the IP Bureau of our country to see how much resources have to be injected into the system. So in future, when we have clearer information, we'll come back to report to LegCo. Apart from the technical aspect, legislative amendments may have to be carried out. So I'd like to thank Mr. Wong for his reminder. We'll proceed with full steam with that task. Mr. Chairman, I asked about the further development of Science Park. Phase 3 of Science Park has been very popular. Will the government expeditiously develop Phase 4? Secretary, Phase 3 has just started. In accordance with the needs of the trades and industries, will inject more resources to assist them in their development. Next, Mr. Charles Mok. Mr. Chairman, a simple follow-up question first. That's about reply serial number 109. That's about the $50 million to the retail industry to develop information technology. And then ABCD had been given to us, totaling $130 million to adopt those measures, covering training and so forth. I'd like to seek clarification on one point. $50 million on A, and then is it $83 million? No, $80 million, another $80 million for items B, C, and D. Is that what the Secretary meant in his reply? Yes. And then I'd like to ask about reply serial number 114 in relation to the BUD fund. Recently, I talked to friends from the retail industry. They actually told me that they also have great needs. They'd like to have a local BUD fund because the three letters BUD do represent three areas, including the development of the domestic market, which they consider necessary. Between Hong Kong and the mainland, there's a great deal of synergy. A lot of people come to shop. For the retail services, if Hong Kong is to diversify its economy, it shouldn't just focus on BUD. For those who want to go to the mainland, they can do so. But many people told me that there's nowhere for them to seek help. Let's not talk about other jurisdictions. I mean, jurisdictions apart from the mainland, even Hong Kong. Here you say that you have no plan to extend the scheme, the fund, to other parts of the mainland. Will you consider other ways and means to do the same? That is, to do, but again, branding, upgrading, and domestic sales, but locally, to assist the SMEs locally. Secretary? Mr. Chairman, we all know that BUD is to develop branding, upgrading, and domestic sales on the mainland. We have other schemes, particularly to assist the local SMEs for developing their business. We have the loan guarantee scheme, market promotion fund, market support fund, and so forth. All these are for the businesses of SMEs locally. And then the Productivity Council and some other projects are also to assist the trades and industries of Hong Kong to develop their brands. May I defer to the Director? Mr. Chairman, just now the BUD, that is the BUD fund, was mentioned. The focus of that fund is to match the effort of the country in terms of the fifth 12-year plan. Well, no problem. So the focus is on the mainland market. As for Hong Kong and other jurisdictions, as the Secretary said, we had other schemes to assist them.
Well, you talk about the SME Export Marketing Fund. Well, but what if the SME wants to develop the local market and not an overseas market? Then they don't get any help. Well, apart from the SME Export Marketing Fund, there is also an SME Development Fund. Over the many years, we have given subsidies to Hong Kong companies of different trade to develop their own infrastructure, to develop their sales platform, technology platform, etc. And where SMEs get assistance to develop their businesses. It's just that we don't put the focus on a particular market. Next, Mr. Kenneth Leung. I want to follow up on the 088 Mega Fund. In the reply, the administration gave us the figures between 2009 and 2014. And there is also the number of participants. Can I have, apart from the number of participating visitors, give me the number of local participants? And I can't help but doubt that when it comes to mega events, what are the purposes? You organize an event so that people will have fun, or just to attract inbound visitors? If it's the latter, in June 2012 we have the in June 2011 we have an Hong Kong Dragon Boat Carnival. Funding ceiling is 4 million, and the number of visitors is 51,346. And in November 2012, there is the UBS Hong Kong Open Championship, and there is a funding ceiling of 8 million, with a number of visitors at 9,903. And then later, we spent $8 million in July 2013 of the Man U Asia Tour, which attracted 8,140. For the stadium, there is a capacity of 40,000 people. So is it the case that the 32,000 places are filled by local people, or they are left empty? And in the last paragraph of your reply, you said that the assessment committee and the and the secretariat will monitor the event organization and to seek views and feedbacks from participants. So how can you observe the entire process and collect feedbacks from the participants? You talk to them? What scientific methods can you use to collect a feedback on these mega events? Secretary, when it comes to the mega event fund, it is to attract more visitors and to stimulate local economy, thereby creating more job opportunities. And of course, local visitors will find that attractive too, and they may be interested to participate. Perhaps I will defer to the Commissioner for supplement. Thank you. Yes, we sponsor these mega events mainly to attract more visitors and to consolidate Hong Kong's status as the event capital in Asia, because in the long run it will be beneficial to Hong Kong. For each mega event, the application will be vetted by the vetting panel. They will give an estimate of a number of participants, including visitors. They will have to attract at least 10,000 participants before they can make an application. Of course, depending on the venue and the nature, the number of participants may be different. But each time when the assessment committee look at the application, you said 10,000. For the 2010 January, you spent 9 million, but it only attracted 942 people. 10,000 refer to the total number of participants, local and visitors. So the Mega Event Fund does not only target visitors. So as long as there are 10,000 people, then they can make an application. Since it's an event taking place locally, of course, local residents are welcome and they can participate. Next, Mr. Martin Liao. 2 questions. 1. CED BCIT 104. In relation to the Kai Tak cruise terminal for 2014-15, about 80% of the funding allotted is spent on the maintenance and repair of the infrastructure. But the cruise terminal has just been opened, and you already have to spend a huge amount of maintenance and repair. So longer. So that means the figure will increase in the long run. Are there any ways for you to keep the maintenance and repair cost at a low level? The next one is 326 in relation to the SME Marketing Fund. Number of applications received is stood at 31,900 at 2009. And in February 2014, only 17,811, a drop by 70%. And successful rate has dropped from 94% to 81%. And the average fund approved has increased from 13,600 to 15,928. With a reducing number of approvals given, is it because there is a lack of publicity? If not, what are the reasons for the drop in number? Sorry, there is another one too. Can you give me an explanation as to how come the average amount approved has increased? Perhaps in relation to the cruise terminal, I will defer to the Commissioner and then to the Director. Then to the Director General. With the cruise terminal being commissioned, there will be maintenance and repair costs. These are recurrent costs, and at the time when we made an application for funding for the project cost, then that part was included and it was approved. We're talking about a huge site with many different types of facilities and equipment. Some of them are quite sophisticated. They are there to support the operation of the cruise terminal. The operator of the cruise terminal and our team will exercise professionalism to ensure that all equipment and facilities will meet the highest standard, and at the same time to avoid unnecessary maintenance and repair costs. In relation to future maintenance and repair, of course, we'll be careful. And depending on the operation of the cruise terminal and the number of cruise vessel coming, that may change. But of course, we will be most careful and most professional to deal with such costs. What about the application threshold? Director General. For the SME Export Marketing Fund in 2008, for each SME, the ceiling was 80,000, but it's been increased 2 times to 150,000. And the ceiling per application has been relaxed from 30,000 to 50,000. ranges from 30,000 to 50,000. But once it's in the past, when a company has reached the 80,000, then the company cannot make an application again. But since we have increased the ceiling, then they can make applications again, and as a result, the number of enterprises and the number of applications have increased. But once they've reached 150,000, then the number of cases will reduce. And last year we have increased it again from 150,000 to 200,000, and we saw that in the second half of last year there is an increase by 8%, and we reckon that the figure will continue to climb. Next, Mr. Michael Tian. I want to ask. The Bureau has been telling Hong Kong that the latest the figure for inbound visitors will be 70 million, and in 2003 is 54 million. 27 million of them come under the IVS, the individual visit scheme. If the number of IVS visitors will increase for it to reach 70 million, then that means every year there will be an increase by 12%. And then from 2009 we have a 10 million, and 2013 27 million under the IVS, an increase of 30% a year. We have excluded the potential visitors coming from Hong Kong, Zhuhai, Macau Bridge and the XRL. You have compressed and tell us that in the coming 4 years the increase will only be 12%, and told Hong Kong people that there will be 70 million people coming to Hong Kong by 2017. But if we look at the trend, there will be 100 million people coming to Hong Kong, so there is a shortfall. I want to ask you, how do you work out the 70 million people coming to Hong Kong? Commissioner, when we project the total number of visitors in 2017, we have taken into account past trends. Say, for example, starting from 2003, there was the IVS. Sorry, don't repeat yourself, Commissioner. I have already given you the figures. So there is a 30% average increase in the past 4 years. And you say that in the coming 4 years, there will be an average increase by 10%. Remember, you mentioned about the XRL and the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge, and these factors have been taken into account. Oh, my side is splitting. When it gets more convenient to come to Hong Kong, the number of visitors coming to Hong Kong will reduce. What logic is it? Well, the natural increase in the past 4 years was 30% on average. With the XRL and the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge, I think there will be an increase in percentage. But you said instead that there will be a drop. I don't understand, Commissioner. When we project the growth of mainland visitors, it may not start at a high level. You said May. How do you know? You're making a projection for Hong Kong people. You say May. You have changed the figure from 30% in the past 4 years to 10% only. And you said that you have already included the potential visitors as a result of XRL and Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge. Okay, 70 million. And then I think there will be about 10 to 20 million people coming under IVS. The MTR said that for 4 people per every square meter is already a saturation. So even if we use 70 million, according to you, there will be a serious problem. Why don't you ask the central authority to make adjustment on the number of people coming to Hong Kong until the central Sha-Tin line is completed? Thank you. But when it comes to railway lines, I'm sure I'm not as conversant with it as you are. What about the number of people accommodated for every square meters? From 6, it's dropped from 6 to 4. For certain lines, yes, during peak hours, they have exceeded the saturation point. And that's why we have to consider different measures to divert passengers and visitors. In the coming 4 years, there won't be any new railway lines. Please let me answer. So how do you control and divert them? I think the Secretary cannot give you specifics.
Are you prepared to reflect to the CPG to adjust the figures for the next 4 years, pending the commissioning of the SEL? Well, all along we've been liaising with the CPG. Well, he said that all along they've been liaising with the CPG. So will you reflect that situation to them? I will factually reflect the situation of Hong Kong and Hong Kong people to them. Time's up. Next, Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to follow up on reply 262. In point 3, it is mentioned that the seamless cross-boundary clearance system is being tested at the moment, and a long-term plan would be formulated. So any timetable. And then for the Authorized Economic Operator Program, China, India, and South Korea are covered at the moment. So any arrangements, any timetable for enhancing the number of jurisdictions covered? And then in point number 5, it is said that the Hong Kong and mainland customs have already adopted the same data model developed by the World Customs Organization. That's okay at this juncture. But the industry is concerned about one aspect. That is multi-modal operations. Cargoes are transported from the mainland to Hong Kong and then be transshipped by air. At the moment, the industry has to fill in 2 forms for information. First of all, the transport arrangement from mainland to Hong Kong and then from Hong Kong outwards, depending on which airline you're using. So we'll try to streamline that regime such that we can do away with so many procedures. Customs and Excise Department, I'll answer the questions as quickly as possible. For the phased regulation, yes, this is really a concern in the industry. For logistics arrangements as well as cost control, that's very important. We conducted tests on the northbound and southbound cargoes last year. Mr. Frankie Yik asked for a timetable. I don't have an exact one because this involves the Customs Bureau on the mainland. But in terms of the Hong Kong Customs and Excise Department is concerned, we would like to see something concrete within this year. As for the detailed information, I have to provide them later. As for the Hong Kong Authorized Economic Operator Program, we did have a very good start. In 2013, as I say in the answer, mainland India and South Korea had signed agreements with us, and upcoming we'll have one with Singapore. We'll negotiate with other jurisdictions as well because such are very helpful to us. In the latter half of 2014, for those trade partners that have closer relations with us, we'll start similar negotiations. Our major trade partners, if facilitated by such agreements, will benefit most. As the Secretary said just now, with ASEAN, we are also discussing business facilitation measures. So ASEAN jurisdictions, ASEAN members will also be top on our list. And as for point number 5, in terms of information, at the moment, Hong Kong has several systems for customs clearance. We're discussing with our counterparts possible ways and means for making customs declaration that will not just help our trades and industries, but also benefit mutual recognition with other jurisdictions. Thank you, Chairman. Now, I'd like to adopt a stricter timetable now because I've got more members on the list. Next, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask about reply 179. The competition ordinance is due to be implemented. In that reply, it is mentioned that about $84 million would be given to the Competition Commission. Concerning the sum of money to be allocated to the Commission, particularly in relation to consultation and promotion work, may I have the details? Because the trades and industries are very concerned because they attach great importance to the competition ordinance. They'd like to know in depth the content of that ordinance in order to avoid breaching the law in future. My next question is related to reply serial number it's related to the cruise terminal. Sorry, I now cannot locate that answer. Yes, cruise terminal is reply 181. The cruise terminal has been commissioned for quite some time. In the past few days, Queen Mary berthed there, and this morning we had reports that some tourists complained that the shops there had not been opened yet. In actual fact, the shopping mall in the cruise terminal is not ready. So how can we make this cruise terminal more attractive such that it becomes a tourist attraction? Secretary, concerning the implementation of the competition ordinance, we're now proceeding with full steam. The remaining provisions of the ordinance require a great deal of work. The Competition Commission is now recruiting administrative staff. They will gradually assume office. Guidelines to be promulgated under the ordinance have to be clear. We also have to do public consultation and education. We've already commissioned a consultant to proceed or to assist us with such tasks. We've promised the LegCo to come back to consult LegCo members. We'll also consult the business sector. As Mr. Wong said, the business community is very concerned about the ordinance. I believe the Commission will conduct education and consultation in order to make the guidelines very clear before the implementation of the ordinance, so there will be sufficient time for the business sector to air their views. As regards tenancy matters related to the cruise terminal, I'll defer to the Commissioner. Mr. Chairman, we welcome the Queen Mary's visit, which is not the first time. In the past, it had to berth at the container port or in the middle of the sea. Now, this time, it can berth at the cruise terminal. I went to the terminal this morning, and the captain was satisfied with the arrangement. As regards the shopping mall there are retail outlets and a Chinese restaurant. In fact, the renovation work for both has started. I hope that the renovation work can be completed as soon as possible, such that the retail shops and the Chinese restaurant can implement their services as soon as possible to facilitate members of the public and the visitors. Mr. Ma Fung Kok, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask about the ETO. Is reply 229, the ETOs. According to the reply, the government will support art groups from Hong Kong to go to other jurisdictions for visits and exchanges. The reply only mentions the bigger art groups and art companies. What about the small and medium art groups? how can they be assisted in terms of overseas exchanges, performances, and so forth? Well, there are no quantitative indicators in the reply. For example, how many art groups, how many overseas visits, etc., and no data about resources allocated to them either. And then I'd like the government to tell us whether it has considered changing the name of ETOs to include the word culture in their names, modeling on the practice of Taiwan. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Ma, for your question. In these exchanges, all along we've been, through these activities, promote Hong Kong's innovation and creative industries. Mr. Ma has observed that different art and culture groups have been covered. I heard Mr. Ma, if there are appropriate SMEs involving in such performances and in creative industries, we would facilitate them. In an exchange with Japan, I also saw the performances of local artists. So long as Hong Kong's culture can be exhibited or displayed will help. Director, if the honourable members so wishes, we can provide the figures. But of course, we don't have indicators for each and every ETO. The ETOs are mainly to promote external trade and to promote Hong Kong. So in accordance with the promotion plan of each and every ETO, if there's anything suitable, the ETO concerned will introduce cultural projects. Of course, film promotion is also carried out by them. Various ETOs have found this rather popular, so we'll work on that more. As the Secretary said, for art groups, be they big or small, if they have plans to go elsewhere to perform or to conduct a roaming tour, we'll try to facilitate them in enhancing their chances to have exchanges with other jurisdictions. Mr. Ma, what about changing the name? Yes, will you add the word culture to the name? Mr. Chairman, in Taiwan, we have a special name for that office in order to attain an equal status with our counterpart there. So we've included the word culture there. But then different jurisdictions have different laws to provide exemptions for these ETOs. So these ETOs come under the laws of other jurisdictions. So we have to observe those laws. Ms. Chan Yun-Han? Mr. Chairman, I have 2 or 3 questions. I understand that I would like to have more details for each and every question, so I may have to queue up for another round. Secretary, the trade unions of the tourism industry are very concerned about tourism development, but they want healthy development, even for the retail industry, where we all welcome the individual visit scheme, CEPA, and so forth. Yet, up to this moment, we still think that the situation is not good enough. Why? Risks are involved. On phone-in programs, you have heard from members of the public that they do query the capacity of Hong Kong to receive so many visitors. Well, Secretary, your reply was annoying. You say, oh, if you cannot get on this train, you wait for another one. Well, it's already so crowded. You ask people to wait for another train. So please conduct assessments and then adopt better measures. It seems that you are saying that according to your assessment, our capacity should be all right. Are there hidden worries behind you, such that you dare not say the truth. Well, Secretary, we need assessments. We recognize the benefits of the IVS, but that does not mean that you need not do reviews. At the moment, for the whole SARG, there's no dedicated policy for this. Traffic and transport, Hong Kong, Zhuhai, Macau Bridge, etc., etc. What will happen after their commissioning? Hong Kong people know very well. If there's anything that will benefit the retail industry, the tourism industry, all will support them. But then we'll have to examine our capacity.
Well, we won't ask about the multiple entry. Can we do more with regard to multiple entry visitors to deal with the excessive number of visitors coming to Hong Kong? Is it because the SARG is afraid? Jiang Nejiang asked Wang Jiangyao to do an assessment. So I want to ask if the Secretary is scared and whether they don't want to do it, or are they just happy with the current situation? I thank Ms. Chen for the question. That gives me a chance to elaborate on my reply. My reply given then was in answer to a question from the media. Of course, I am aware that inbound visitors may cause inconvenience to Hong Kong people's lives, but at the same time, they give us positive impact. Well, say for example, you may wait for another train for more jobs created. Balance will have to be struck. We should have discussions. It's not the case that I'm trying to circumvent or dodge anything. Central authorities. Well, we will liaise with the central authorities to reflect Hong Kong people's views and the situation. What we're trying to do in the assessment report is to apply objective criteria to see in different areas how much our capacity is. And this is a cross-departmental report. You see that, well, and as to how many people can stand in a square meter will also impact on our assessment, on our capacity. Next, Mr. Kwok Wai Kang. I would like to ask about CED BCIT 067. I want to express my strong dissatisfaction. In reply to my question, the attitude of the department is very wishy-washy. I asked the $130 million spent on some pilot schemes of training in the retail industry. The reply given is completely beside the point. They copy my question and treat it as an answer, especially for paragraph B. So is it because these pilot courses are top secret, or the Secretary slights our work in the LegCo? The sector has high expectations because they hope that this $130 million will be able to plug all the gaps in the Secretary's opening speech. There is a very little ink spent on pilot courses. Let's look at the Task Force on Manpower Development. Their recommendation is very clear that salary is not the biggest problem. It's the long working hours, huge workload, and no future. How can you make use of the $130 million to improve the work condition? We don't want subsidies for the courses, because in the end it will go into the pocket of employers. They can recruit, but they can't keep the people there. Why? Because there is a very poor employment terms and very poor working conditions. Is it the case that once the enterprise has got the subsidy, they will have to give some undertakings in regard to improving the commission system or give employees fixed rest times? In this way, then the retail sector may see some improvement. I will defer to the PS. It is not the case that it's top secret. As at this morning, we're still talking to the sector about the details. We have borne in mind the points raised by the member. In the past, people thought that the retail industry is not attractive enough. So one of the ways we are thinking about is for the sector to retain talent after they've been trained by the government. There is a median income of 10,300 in this industry. And there is only a guarantee or salary of $11,000 for university graduates. How do you think you can attract university graduates with such a low salary? Of course, well, for individual companies, it's for them to decide the salary level. We train the manpower, and we hope that they will be able to see the future, and there will be a basic guaranteed salary level. Next, Mr. Gary Fan. I have a question for the Secretary. Two replies 058 and 107. Mr. Jeffrey Lam said that he had some urgent matter to attend to, but he rightly pointed it out about it being difficult to get something back. Back in 2008, there was an interview of C.Y. Leung, and C.Y. Leung said that, well, at that time, C.Y. Leung was asked as to whether Hong Kong will be able to deal with the IVS, because once it's given, it's difficult to be taken back. And C.Y. Leung was very confident, saying that we will be able to tackle it. But now we see that everyone is suffering, and Greg So is asking people just to wait for another train. I think it's a case of why not eat cake? So it leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. And in 058, it says that in 2014 to 15, the tourism board will put a lot more money to in this industry. Well, is there a need to put more Hong Kong people's money to promote to mainland visitors? Because even without any promotion, there will be a lot of mainland visitors coming to Hong Kong. And for 107, the Secretary said that in relation to the operation of IVS, that there will be regular liaison. How regular is it? Once every month, once every 2 months, once every 6 months? So there was one in 2013. So how many more exchanges will there be in 2014 and 15? I would like to say to Mr. Fan that this is a very serious issue. Of course, I of course will deal with this seriously. In the assessment, we have adopted some objective factors in working out the conclusion. The situation changes, we have to make adjustments. And as I've said, the Chief Executive reflected the issue to the central authorities, and the central authority has put a stop on multiple entry. How many regular exchanges have you had? Tell me. The TB will increase its resources from 70% to 75% on overseas visitors. And as to the budget on promotion in Guangdong province, I think it's only 1%. I think what you see belongs to other provinces. And in relation to exchanges, it's a regular exchange. How often? Give us a figure. Perhaps I will defer to the Commissioner. Because we have formal and we have official and unofficial exchanges. How often? Please be more specific, Commissioner. From time to time, we have exchanges with the National Tourism Administration and the different ministries and commissions. Can you give me a written answer? It's not fixed, so it's not regular then. So as and when needed. During meetings, we will also mention about the issues related to tourism. Well, I think we're here to answer questions and not being interrogated. You just answer. If you can't give us an answer, then you may say that you can give us the information afterwards. I think we should not lose time if you can't get an answer no matter how hard you try. Ms. Claudia Mo, you rightly put it, Chairman, that we can't get anywhere if they refuse to answer. Even Beijing said that there is a problem when it comes to the number of visitors coming to Hong Kong in relation to IVS. But on one hand, you said that, well, yes, we have reflected the problems. On the other hand, you said that it's not really a problem and we have taken objective factors into consideration. How come it's not a problem? How come that the percentage of increase will be smaller with the commissioning of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge? What projection is it? Okay, if I take it, it's going to be 70 million. You said there will be more hotels. You expand the Ocean Park, and then you also thinking about developing Lantau Island. There is only so much you can make with just one pot. If you keep pouring water into it, and I think it will end in a disaster. 107 is my question. I asked about Taiwan. You should learn from Taiwan. Well, the loyalists asked the police to learn from Taiwan as to how their police clear the scene. You should really learn from Taiwan. They are much bigger than Hong Kong, but they impose a quota of 5,000 per day when it comes to mainland visitors. So every month is 150,000. For a year, 1.8 million. For somewhere as big as Taiwan, it's only 1.8 million a year. But we have tens of millions. And for those that don't stay overnight, to 28 million last year. In the coming year, 32 million. How can Hong Kong put up with it? Hong Kong is very small. Why don't you answer me? Would you consider taking reference from Taiwan? At the beginning, the estimate was below 1 million for Hong Kong. You said you would conduct an assessment. Is there a timetable? When will it be completed? When will it be made public or given to the LegCo? And you said the assessment is cross-departmental. Which departments? Number 3. Assessment of what? If you keep talking about developing Lantau Island and building more hotels, or is it going to be a restriction on the number of IVS visitors? Secretary. Hong Kong is very different from Taiwan, so you can't compare the two. We can only take into account Hong Kong's situation, look at our capacity, and conduct assessment. We already have the assessment report. Perhaps Ms. Mo doesn't know that. When it comes to our capacity, we can expand it, and the situation may change. Is it going to be no more assessment? Once you have that assessment report, you say that in 10 years there is going to be 100 million IVS visitors. Perhaps Ms. Mo did not hear me. As situation changes, we will make adjustments to the content of the report.
Please provide us with information after the adjustment. Mr. Albert Chan. Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether other bureaus also rely on Mr. Chang Chi-kong for research. They're asking for $2 million for research. Mao Zedong said that if there's no survey, there's no speaking right. Be it the bureau directors or Mr. 689, what's said is an order from the ruler. No matter how annoyed members of the public are, public resentment is rising. They're going to occupy Central. They complain, but then the officials turn a deaf ear to their cries. It's only just recently that the CPG has expressed its concern. It's only after the CPG has expressed its concern that the SARG officials were awakened. If the CPG officials did not say anything or did not issue any instructions, the SARG officials will only be sleeping or distributing name cards. Well, if you ask them for name cards, they'll give you a big pile. So my question is, what about the capacity of Hong Kong in receiving tourists, be it the pro-establishment camp, the DAB, or the hidden communists? All walks of life will be criticizing the same. As for the bureau director, he has said nothing, even under pressure. What about capacity to receive visitors, traffic and transport, economy, and so forth? He always said that economy will be positive to Hong Kong, bringing economic opportunities. But up to now, there's no suitable survey results. Mao Zedong said in as early as the 1930s that if there's no survey, there's no speaking right. So if the Secretary cannot answer this question, I'd like the Commissioner for Tourism to say something. Traffic and transport, environment, public capacity, and so forth. So if our capacity is not enough, will you try to reduce the number of visitors instead of increasing the number? I wonder whether Mr. Chan has read our survey report or assessment report. What assessment report are you referring to? Which assessment report said that members of the public should wait for another train? That's about the report on the capacity to receive visitors. Well, how many visitors should we be receiving? Up to 100 million. I wonder whether Mr. Chan has read our assessment report. If he has not read the report, he should not be directing those remarks at us. You have to read our assessment report, which covers the capacity of our boundary control points, the facilities of our community, the hotel capacity, the capacity of the traffic and transport systems, the impact on people's livelihood, etc. Just now I asked you a whole series of questions. Politics, social aspects, economic aspects, and so forth. Economically, many shops were forced to close. In Germany, we had, shops had been closing. Shops of a history of 30 to 40 years also closed down in Hong Kong. You must not distort the facts. You have not carried out any such research at all, and you only ask people to wait for another train while you take the private car. So you have a private car to take you. Mr. Poze, Mr. Chairman, concerning the overcrowdedness caused by mainland visitors, I believe there are a lot of deep-seated issues here. Some of our colleagues have been scolding the government loudly. I'd want to point out certain aspects. We shouldn't adopt a quota system. In the past, we've always said that we shouldn't restrict the mobility of the population, the birth rate, etc. So facing such serious criticisms, some of our members have forgotten the discrimination aspect. Some remarks were actually not appropriate. For example, those accusing mainland visitors locusts. I wonder whether some people have been selfish in putting forth those remarks. Of course, we shouldn't make those remarks. We should exercise self-discipline at the same time. Some members have queried the calculation method adopted by the government. Now, we should look at the growth rates. On the mainland, things have been changing, even for the remote areas. Given improved transport, some mainlanders may in future go directly to overseas jurisdictions instead of going via Hong Kong. They no longer need to do so. So Hong Kong may no longer be a shopper's paradise in future. That is already changing. So even if we are to have the XRL, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau bridge, that trend may be changing. As regards the quota system adopted in Taiwan, I have to say that in Taiwan they have to consider the political aspect. Unlike Hong Kong, we are a free place. We talk about our freedoms. We talk about human rights. Well, for the time being, we may not be able to solve certain problems, certain livelihood problems, but we should not give up our values. Well, for the remaining time, let me ask this. Some eateries may be too busy, such that they cannot receive all the visitors. So we may have to do more publicity. We may have to lift our prices such that mainlanders can decide for themselves whether or not they are to come. Of course, we don't want just to receive foreign visitors. We should not turn away mainland visitors. That's not the direction to take. Now, what about the tourism board? Is spending so much money every year and is asking for another $50 million this year. Should we not enhance the quality of our tourist facilities? And we should reduce promotion for the time being such that we'll have a natural wastage of visitors. Otherwise, if we continue to inject money into promotion, if we only emphasize foreign visitors, that's actually discrimination. So should we reduce funding for promotion for the time being? Secretary or director or commissioner? Well, I agree with the honorable member. Apart from promotion, we should also improve our tourist facilities. We'll allocate resources to that end, and if extra resources is necessary, we'll resort to certain avenues for extra funding. As for the tourism board, yes, we see the prosperity of our tourism industry, but we face quite some competition from neighboring jurisdictions, but our efforts cannot produce results overnight. Well, 4 more members are to speak for the first round. They pressed their button rather late. Should I give them 2 minutes each? Tan Ka-Piu, 2 minutes. 2 minutes? I shouldn't exceed that time frame. I'd like to supplement on what Ms. Chen Yunhan said. We won't readily say that we want to reduce the size or scale of the IVS. But then we may need some adjustments because some people are making use of the IVS to do parallel trading. So the government should be focused on that aspect in order to ease the resentment of the public. To follow up on Ms. Chen Yunhan, for those using a home return permit, one person may be going in and out of Hong Kong 4 times a day. Now, such a person may be interrogated. Now, we're not opposing multi-entry visas, but what we're saying is that if a person go in and out of Hong Kong several times a day, can we act on them? We can set a ceiling, say 4 times a day. That is to suppress parallel trading. By the figure 40 million, we mean visitor trips. If among 40 million trips, 20 million trips are parallel trading activities, then we don't actually have so many tourists. Secretary or Commissioner? Concerning parallel trading, the administration has always been acting on that. For the Immigration Department, it has a checklist. Do you have any administrative measure in order that you can act when a visitor comes in and out of Hong Kong for a certain number of times per day? What about the mainland authorities? Well, at boundary control points on both the mainland side and Hong Kong side, we do have measures to tackle the problem. Mr. Yu Si Wing, 2 minutes. I very much agree with Mr. Paul Tse. We must not discriminate against mainland visitors. If we go to the mainland and the mainlanders call us locusts, what shall we feel? So we must exercise self-discipline in this regard in handling this issue. I'd like to ask about reply 206 concerning the streaming of visitors. Does the SARG have any plan on areas for visitors, shopping habits, etc., in order to facilitate streaming? I'd like to know which districts have seen an excessive number of visitors. So on that basis, we should adopt a streaming regime. But that's not in the reply. And then any statistics to show that the government is prepared to do something in that regard. Commissioner, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question. Every now and then we'll take note of the situation of visitors crossing the boundary control points and their shopping habits in Hong Kong. We'll further look into this issue. We'll step up monitoring in this regard. We'll gather more data on, say, the duration of stay of visitors. Now, I'd like to ask about reply 203. I asked the AMO the same question this morning. Only 500,000 odd visitors have been visiting our heritage and historic monuments. Any extra effort to boost that number? Well, we'll make use of all sorts of methods by way of leaflets, websites, etc., to bring more visitors to our heritage and historic monuments. We'll also promote eco-tourism. I'd like to ask about reply 271 on intellectual property, IP. The government would like to develop Hong Kong into an IT hub. At the moment, we have funds to assist SMEs to develop and promote their own brand names. Now, to develop into an IT or IP hub, we've actually stopped at promotion and publicity. There should be funds to assist in registration, provision of services, and so forth. All along, we've been liaising with SMEs in this regard. That's one of our major initiatives that is to be dedicated to our education and promotion work. As for the application for patents, for example, assistance has been provided to SMEs in their applications by way of publicity, promotion, and education. I'd like to see SMEs make more use of such facilities and services.
Registration is very expensive. If it's just locally, then there's a limited amount. But if it's about Greater China and the rest of the world, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars or even $1 million or so. So how would you consider helping SMEs? Yes, when it comes to application of patent, it's more expensive out of the other things under IPR. Dr. Kokaki, we understand that we have to develop tourism. But now, most of Hong Kong people dislike visitors, and this backfires. And if the government doesn't do anything, if they have conducted analysis on what these visitors come to do, you realize that some of them don't come to Hong Kong to visit. They come to Hong Kong to do business or even engage in illegal activities. I think the reply of the administration amounts to just wait. I think it's rather irresponsible. Are there any plans to screen out visitors who don't bring value to Hong Kong? Say, for example, they come to do parallel trading. I don't think they're welcomed by our retail industries or our hotel industry. So you will have to consider whether to change the multiple entry. Say, for example, a restriction of the number of entries per day or per month. This will not affect tourism because genuine visitors don't mind that, Secretary. We have diversification in our tourism. We have multiple entry under IVS. We have single entry under IVS. We also have group tours. And different tourists come to Hong Kong and they have a different spending pattern. When we talk about increase in hotel rooms, it may not tackle the problem brought over by visitors not staying overnight under the IVS. And we will consider the many different ways and reflect the same to the central authorities. What about possible changes to the IV, to these multiple entries? As I've said, that we have reflected Hong Kong people's views and all the issues to the central authorities. In 7 minutes, there will be the next session.